Everyone, this is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and today I am back to speak to you guys about the Logos, the Lion, and the King of Kings. And so today we're going to be getting into the biblical symbolism of the lion and how that relates to, obviously, the Lion of Judah, or the Lion of the tribe of Judah, a reference to Christ during the book of Revelation. And so we're going to be getting into biblical verses. The lion is a very interesting symbol within the Christian context because it's used both in a negative, a sort of pejorative way, but also a positive in a very sort of divine way in which we understand positive attributes related to power and strength, masculinity, courage, wisdom. So it's very interesting how the lion is actually used within Christian theology, how it's used within the Bible itself. And so we're going to be getting into really an overview for today is looking at sort of the general symbolism, even within the secular world, even within other world religions, the symbolism of the lion, what that represents, how it relates even to the zodiac, back to Leo the lion, if you will, right? So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at some biblical verses that are both positive and also some negative ones to put into perspective our topic today. And then we're going to be looking at a few readings that I had that I wanted to go over with you guys, and then end with why I see the lion as a very positive and interesting symbol for the contemporary man moving forward. And so that's kind of what is on the agenda today. Just give me one sec. I need to turn off the heater. Got the heater going over here, and it's a little bit warm once I start streaming, so I wanted to turn that off. But today's stream really was prompted because you guys who watched me last time saw me discuss that I was reaching out to anybody who had skills within sort of the art world, the music world, in regards to logos, intros, and stuff like that. And I wanted to say that that's actually what prompted today's video. Was a couple days ago. So I did that stream on Friday or Saturday. Actually, I think it was Thursday. And it dawned on me while I was working out Saturday. It was Saturday. I was working out and I kept trying to think about a logo for the Logos Fitness stuff. And everything just seemed so corny, like a guy flexing or a bodybuilder or a flexing bicep or anything. It's just like, it just seems cartoonish. It seems just kind of, just too cartoony. It doesn't seem serious. Like I want it to be more serious. So I was working out and all of a sudden it hit me that I should use the lion as a symbol for the Logos Fitness stuff. And so that then got me thinking, and I was thinking about, okay, so the lion's mane, obvious symbol of masculinity, sort of maleness, right? Strength, power, courage, Christ as the lion for the tribe of Judah. We also see the lion referenced into Satan as to prowling and waiting for us, and I think that's Peter 5:8. So it hit me how, okay, so the lion is a very interesting symbol. Maybe that should be the symbol, the logo moving forward for Logos Fitness, and I think that's actually what I'm going to do. And so that prompted me to really start diving into Scripture and looking at and seeing if this is really what I want to do. And I thought there was just some really interesting correlations to other ideas and concepts that I've talked about in previous streams. And then how really, once we dive into the sort of biblical exegesis, the hermeneutics of the lion and its symbolism, that I think it is actually a very, very, very appropriate symbol for the modern man, especially the Christian man. And so that's what we're going to be getting into. Please, I hope the audio and everything is coming through fine. Let me know. I should be streaming right now on a multitude of platforms, and so just again, let me know everything's going all right. So I want to share this over on mine. So, okay, it looks like the audio is good. Looks like everything is coming through clear. So before I get into everything, I do want to highlight, as usual, take care of a little bit of house cleaning. We had a few new people sign up over at the website. Thank you guys very much for doing that. Everybody who has gone over to davidpatrickcarey.com/register and has signed up for a logo subscription membership. Really appreciate that. Again, we got new content coming out. I got the story of going to a Gnostic Mass, story of getting in a fight in China, 2-hour testimony from Subdeacon Mark regarding how he became Orthodox, private conversation with Existential Delight, my entire logo subscription fitness library is included with that. So if those things are something you'd be interested in, or if you just want to donate, like if you just want to help contribute, just sign up for a membership. That's a $5 a month contribution. Consider it a donation. And if you have time, if you want, if you're interested, you can still always go to the website and access exclusive content. So I think that is something that is worth thinking about if you want to contribute regularly. Also, I do one-on-ones. If anybody wants to do a one-on-one session, feel free to sign up for that. I am still reaching out for anybody who's a music producer, a DJ, makes beats. Reach out to me. If you make logos, reach out to me. I got so many ideas. I need more Orthodox people. I need more people to help me maybe make some of these ideas come to fruition. And so if that's something you want to do, you'll get full credit for any work that you aid with. So, just reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you guys. The last point of the housekeeping I want to mention is a lot of people have reached out to me very kindly and very generously in regards to my dog. I mentioned that last time in the stream that my dog was having problems with seizures. And so those of you who know, I actually did a stream on Sarge. Sarge is a pit bull, or was a pit bull. I'm saying that obviously I had to put him down, and I did that Friday. And so I haven't made any like public posts. I want to do sort of a memorial to him. Again, he was a very special dog to me. Had quite the emotional bond. We had traveled the United States, driven across the entire country twice together. He'd probably seen more of the United States than most people have. He'd been to Yellowstone. He'd been to the Rocky Mountains, Colorado Springs, Las Vegas, Southern California, the Bay Area, Lake Tahoe, Yosemite. He's been all those places, and I mentioned earlier this summer he started to have some health problems, and my dog was 13 years old, so he was much older, and he was urinating in the house. I thought maybe he had kidney failure. Took him to the vet. This was around July. Turned out he had Cushing's disease, which is a problem with the adrenal glands. And so got some some adrenal regulating drops and stuff to put that in his food. And that seemed to really help. He no longer was just going to the restroom and peeing in the house like consistently. But unfortunately, about a week and a half ago, he had a seizure. It was on a Friday night. It'll be 2 weeks. Anyways, so it was a Friday night. He had a seizure. We really weren't sure what happened because it wasn't until after he had the seizure that he had woken somebody up. They had noticed that he had just kept walking around in the house and didn't really seem to know where he was. Find out the next night while I was there, he then goes into a full-blown seizure, very, very intense. And I felt, so that was actually me holding him. That was on a Saturday. I tried to get CBD oils for him, and that was on a Sunday. So Monday, Tuesday, he did not have a seizure. Sunday, and then Monday, he did not have a seizure. Started giving him the CBD, didn't help whatsoever. And so on Thursday, within about a 24-hour period, he had another seizure Tuesday or Wednesday, and then on Thursday, up to when I took him to the vet to be euthanized, he had 3 seizures in less than 24 hours, and it's just really tough to watch that. And I knew that he was getting older, and I was going to have to put him down, but it's just very, very difficult. And so actually taking your dog, somebody that you have lots of memories with, somebody that you care about, to be put down is actually more difficult than you think. And so I think I may do a stream actually discussing that whole thing, doing a sort of memorial discussion of Sarge, or even talking about Orthodoxy's theology about being reunited with your pets. And so it is interesting that in Orthodoxy, we do have a theology that you will be able to reconvene with the animals that you loved and grown with. It's sort of in one way or another. I heard Subdeacon Mark mention to me that we sort of humanize our animals by our relationships with them, and so I'll probably do a stream talking about that. I just needed a few days to. I couldn't look through all my photos with him because the next day, the Saturday, I was gonna post like a memorial thing with Sarge, but I couldn't get myself to look through all the photos yet. So I will do that. And so I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who's reached out to me privately. Anybody who actually knows me in my real life, not just somebody who goes online and streams, knows that Sarge was such a good dog and that I got him when I was 19 years old. So as most people in their 20s are sort of have no responsibilities and do whatever they want to do. Yes, I did a lot of that. But, I was a dog owner throughout my whole 20s. And so just like your daily habits, getting greeted when you enter the door, it's just a little bit different. And it certainly is a little bit more difficult, but I will digress from that. I just wanted to share for everybody who had reached out privately and those of you actually who knew Sarge. So thank you very much. Ended up burying him in the backyard after euthanizing him. And boy, was that difficult. So without further ado, actually, let's get into today's stream. So today we're looking at the Logos, the Lion, and the King of Kings. Why did I name it that? I originally actually named it Jesus Christ. The Lion and the King of Kings means the same thing. I just thought after rereading it, I thought the Logos actually rang a little bit better. And the reason why I actually renamed it, there's a deeper point as well, is that the reason why I named it the Logos is obviously the Logos is who incarnates as Jesus Christ. And so what I wanted, part of the discussion today, is really highlight that Logos and the incarnation into the physical body of Jesus of Nazareth is going to be tied with a discussion I want to lay with the lion, and even Satan being the lion being the king of the jungle, Satan being the king of the jungle. And by God incarnating, taking on that nature, divinizing that nature, he is now the King of Kings. He's the king of the jungle and heaven, if you will, right? So there's more to it, and there's also a Logos to the sort of symbolism in a more generic Platonic use of the term Logos, right? There is a sort of order to the use in which the lion is used, and that's what I want to really begin our discussion with today. Is before we get too much into Scripture and the biblical understanding, I want to look into just the secular, large take, world religious understanding of how the lion is used. And so, generally speaking, some of the characteristics, some of the attributes that the lion symbolizes, and usually always it's a male lion, although within motherhood, the female lioness is often used because of her fierceness in regards to the protection and the defending and the raising of her cubs. So I think there's even, as I'll get into, a deeper reason for the male lion symbolism in regards to the contemporary man and the sort of absence of traditional masculine qualities. The female lion also works for women as well, so very interesting there. Again, guys, if you can, please smash that like button if you've just joined. Always appreciate it. So the lion, it represents so many things. Obviously, the first one is power and strength. The lion represents power and strength, and this is one of the reasons why I thought it'd be so appropriate for like the Logos fitness stuff. But power and strength, wisdom is another characteristic often associated with the lion, and as his characteristics are being symbolized, along with authority. And again, think about these characteristics and how they relate to the Logos, how they relate to Jesus Christ and who he is and what he represents. And so then we're going to get into the carnal aspects of the lion and why that would be more emblematic of Satan himself. But authority, power, strength, wisdom, and of course, courage. Courage is a very common attribute of the lion. And as we will also see, protection. So really something very interesting is even regarding the history of magic, sigil magics, amulets, stuff like that, is the lion was often used and put on various stones, various amulets, if you will, magical talismans to represent protection. And so whether it's the male lion protecting the pride or the tribe, or it's the female lion protecting the cubs and the more innocent, the more vulnerable, the lion is a symbol of protection. So again, we see that in relationship to Christ. He is often associated with justice as well. Justice. So again, we see all these as really uncreated energies of the Logos. This is why I wanted to change it from Jesus to the Logos, so I could talk about energies and stuff like that a little bit more. And historically speaking, the lion was often symbolic of royalty, of kings, of emperors, because of its standing within the world of beasts, if you will, right? And that's even going to tie to some of the quotes that I have from Scripture, like Psalm 104:21, and it's talking about how the lion never backs down, right? So we're going to get into a lot of stuff now, but as I was going to read to you guys, the lion has been used in a multitude of religions. This isn't just Christianity. When we look at the Lion of Judah in regards to Christ, I think it's more appropriate to use St. Justin Martyr's sort of framework for Logos Spermaticos, and seeing how we can see the symbolism of the lion being used in a multitude of religious traditions, really all hinting at who Christ is. Right, they're seeds of truth. They're the spermaticos of the Logos, and so some of those, for example, is like Krishna. For example, in Hinduism, Krishna is often, again, the New Agey, the people who don't take the theology very seriously, say, "Oh, Krishna is an analogous figure to Christ over in Hinduism." It's not. They're not the same at all. I mean, they may have a few overlaps. One of which is the fact that Krishna is said to be a lion among wild creatures, so he's symbolized as a lion sometimes. But that is one of the most annoying things that I hear from the New Agers. That Krishna is just the Hindu Christ, man. No, the theology is not even close. Like, get out of here. But Krishna is symbolized as a lion. The Buddha was symbolized as the lion of the Shakyas, and the Shakyas are really just an ethnic group in sort of eastern India towards the Himalaya region. And so the Buddha, being from the Shakya tribe, that sort of ethnic group, that he was considered to be the lion of the Shakyas. This was a common epithet of the Buddha. And then Egyptians had lion statues facing east and west, stuff like that. The lion is arguably the ultimate personification of male energy, So I think that's really interesting. Again, another reason why I want to highlight how this relates to maybe absent qualities within the contemporary man, but why it is also an appropriate symbol for what I'm calling Logos fitness, stuff like that. And within the sort of concept of, this is just something more subtle, something that I was thinking about. It was regards to what we call a group of lions is a pride. And one of the things we have to actually watch out for with the use of lion symbolism is, again, we have courage, we have wisdom, we have authority, we have power, we have strength, is that all these qualities within us as humans can lead to pride. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting, subtle connection there, that I thought that we call a group of lions actually a pride. And if we're actually going to take on or use the lion as a symbol for ourselves in regards to maybe filling out attributes that are absent, we also have to be very careful about not getting too deep into those qualities, which are going to lead us to a sense of pridefulness. And that pridefulness is also going to be a fall. It's the mother of all sins, as you've heard me say multiple times. So we do have to watch out for that. But the lion, I think, symbolizes for us, and this is what I want to highlight with the ambiguity of the lion symbolism within biblical scripture is that it's used in a very negative context and it's used in a very positive context in different ways, is that that shouldn't be a problem for us, because another way to interpret the lion symbolism is it's really a taming of our own animalistic instincts. And so if we want to be the kings of our own kingdoms, if you will, sorry, ladies out there, you can still be the lioness of your kingdom, but the lioness does ultimately submit to the lion. And if we're going to be kings of our own kingdom, right? We're not going to be kings of the jungle, if you will, but kings of our own kingdoms that are reflective and us trying to be icons of the King of Kings, then we have to tame that sort of animalistic quality within ourselves, that fallen nature, that fallen human nature. That has to be dealt with. And I think it's interestingly then that we can use the symbolism of the lion to highlight one who's conquered that, but also one who is conquering it. And so whether we look at Daniel in the lion's den as sort of a righteousness, a faithful servant of God, not being attacked by the beast, if you will. Again, we can reinterpret that in different ways. If we look at Samson, and this is something I was wanting to do a stream maybe on Wednesday of just Samson. And we're going to read Judges chapter 13, 14, 15, and 16, which are all about Samson. That Samson is also, in my opinion, another really interesting figure in regards to masculinity, in regards to the contemporary man. That he's tricked, his hair is cut, he's bound to the pillars of the Philistines, he's blinded. This is the state of the contemporary man. We've circumcised our strength, right? It's been cut. We have divorced ourselves from tradition. We find ourselves as we slowly wake up, many of us in the 2018, the 2019, the 2020 period, that we are tied to the pillars of the Philistines, that we are duped, we are trapped, and that we actually have to take down the temple of the enemy. And so there's a lot of, that's going to be for Wednesday, getting deeper into Samson. But Samson comes across a lion and kills it with his bare hands. And so, again, interestingly, we can use the lion in a multitude of different ways. We don't always, yes, Christ is the Lion of Judah, but also we see the beast of the wild and somebody like a Samson who kills it with its bare hands. That is also indicative of what we should be doing in sort of the killing of the passions, of the animalistic instincts within ourselves. And guys, I am not there, I'm telling you. I am a work in progress, as is anyone else. And so taming your passions, whatever those may be, and how they arise, not an easy task. It's not an easy task. And neither is taking on a lion, right? I'm not trying to equate the two, but I think there is replete inside of this much symbolism that can be gained us as Christians when we look at it. And then, of course, as I was mentioning, Satan is the king of the jungle. So we can take then place the animalistic tendencies, a more of a beast framework regarding the lion. And the lion is all those things. The lion is blood-seeking. The lion is ferocious. The lion is carnivorous. The lion, is a murderer. And the lion prowls for us. So again, just as Peter 5:8 talks about Satan doing the same thing, we see Satan ultimately as the king of the jungle. So the lion in its sort of fallen state is only the king of terrestrial territory, right? It's only the king of the jungle. Whereas when we see the lion, symbolically speaking, in its divinized state as the Lion of Judah, as Christ, as the Logos taking on its characteristics, we see it as the King of Kings, no longer the king of the jungle, right? The king of the jungle is the king of a dimension or a portion of creation, and that is Satan, right? Satan has dominion or kingship or he's at the top of the hierarchy or the pyramid in regards to the power structures of creation. But as something that I actually want to read to you, a Christian interpretation of how the lion is actually used biblically speaking, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that that within nature, if we're speaking in a sort of biological framework, a zoological framework, that what can kill a lion other than a bigger and badder and better lion? And so that's what we have with the same semiotic framework that I'm laying out in regards to Satan as the king of the jungle, Satan in regards to the sort of fallen forms of the lion, and then Christ as the Lion of Judah, the King of Kings, not just the king of a jungle or the king of a portion of creation. So I think there's something very interesting there. Oh, Nick Offinger, good ortho bro, threw in $4.99. Thank you very, very much, brother. Nick just threw in $4.99. He said, imagine supporting degenerate Netflix and Amazon, but not donating to our guy, Patrick. Peace, bro. Have a good week. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you, Nick. I really, really appreciate it, brother. Hope you and the family are doing well. I'm sure you're at work right now over in the lab doing your thing. So thank you. I really, really appreciate that. So anyways, and then so really that incorporates much of what I wanted to say about the general symbolism of the lion and how that leads to the lion, and the way that I want to use in regard to the Logos Fitness is symbolizing the unification of these animalistic fallen tendencies of ourselves with the King of Kings, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, right? So lions of the faith is also something I found within Orthodoxy is a very common phrase, that within the world of Orthodoxy, it's very, very common to refer to a priest or a monk or an archbishop or somebody who is a defender of the faith as lions of the faith, lions of the faith. And so one of the other dimensions, as I was talking about with the use of lions on amulets, is their sort of protective characteristics. And we can also see that within Christ, right? Christ is the bigger and badder lion to protect us from the prowling lion of Satan, if you will. Now, in regards to scripture, I have a whole bunch of verses that I want to read to you guys. I just have a few that I think are, here. I'll go through, obviously, the negative one. I'm not going to go through a bunch of the negative ones because we get it. The understanding the lion as sort of a beast that's wrapped up with animalistic primal instincts, that even again, this is something that I wanted to highlight. Even the idea within Christianity, we have a theological concept that the lion will lay next to the calf, right? When Christ comes, when he comes back to redeem the world, the fallenness of the world will no longer exist. And that includes the sort of carnivorous attributes and tendencies of the lion himself. And this is why you'll see, often in more Protestant, art, even some Catholic stuff, you'll see Jesus, and then you'll see the lamb and the lion next to each other. That does have theological import in regards to when Christ comes back, the fallenness of the world will no longer be the case, and therefore even the lion, because this is going to affect all of creation, even the lion will no longer partake in the same activities he does now. So even the lion will be transformed in the second coming of Christ. Now, some of the biblical verses that I wanted to read, the first one is Revelation 5:5. This is the most important one in regards to where we get the concept of Christ being the Lion of Judah. And so Revelation 5:5 reads, "And one of the elders said to me, Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." And so there's a lot more I want to say about this. And again, I'm going to be reading an article talking deeper to the lion symbolism of the worthiness of Christ being the one to actually open the scrolls and break the 7 seals. I'm going to come back to this, but this verse right here, Revelation 5:5, and one of the elders said to me, Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. Very important verse. Again, we will be coming back to that one, I promise. There's one that I like. These are more positive verses regarding the lion imagery, lion symbolism that I wanted to highlight today. The first one comes from Amos chapter 3, verse 8. Amos chapter 3, verse 8. And it reads, "The lion has roared. Who will not fear? The Lord God has spoken. Who cannot prophesy?" And so obviously that's divorced from some of its context. But I like the relationship between a lion roaring and who will not fear, and God has spoken, who can but prophesy. Um, I don't know. I like that verse. That was another one that I wanted to highlight. The next one is Hosea 11:10, and it reads, "They shall go after the Lord. He will roar like a lion. When he roars, his children shall come trembling from the west." Shall come trembling from the west. So there's interesting stuff going on there. That's Hosea chapter 11, verse 10. They shall go after the Lord. He will roar like a lion. So direct reference to the Lord as lion. When he roars, his children shall come trembling from the west. And so the west is often symbolized as death. Because just like within Christianity, we tend to, if we can, face our churches east, the rising sun, again, symbolic, if you will, of the resurrection of Christ, the light of the world, the risen Savior. And even lions themselves are very, very symbolic of the sun because of their mane, because of their power, because of their color. All these different things are related. So lions are often symbolized as the sun or symbolizing of the sun. And so interesting that his children shall come trembling from the west. The west often symbolizes death because the sun goes and dies in the west when it sets. And so the children who are towards death are coming back to God in fear and trembling due to the hearing of his lion roar. So I like that. I like that verse. That was something I found. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 1. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Proverbs chapter 21:20. And I like that as well, because that boldness, that courageous attributes that we associate with the lion are what I want to perpetuate with the use of this symbolism. Again, we see this all through Proverbs. Proverbs makes multiple references to the lion in very positive fashion. So interesting stuff there. The next one that I wanted to read is also from Proverbs. Proverbs 19 verse 12 reads, "A king's wrath is like the growling of a lion, but his favor is like dew on the grass." A king's wrath is like the growling of a lion, but his favor is like the dew on the grass. So very interestingly, again, we've already talked about the relationship. This is Proverbs, so we're looking at Old Testament scripture, but historically speaking, outside the biblical context, the lion symbolized royalty and kings and kingdoms and emperors. And here we see a direct relationship within Scripture that a king's wrath is like the growling of a lion, a sort of analogous relationship between the lion and the king. The next one that I wanted to highlight was actually something that I shared on my stories today on Instagram. So if you guys are interested and you want to follow a little bit more of sort of my day-to-day activities or my life, or even like what will be the tribute to my dog, feel free to follow me over on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of my regular life type of stuff. So you can feel free to find me over there. But the next one that I want to read was Proverbs chapter 30, verse 30. And it reads, "The lion, which is the mightiest among beasts, does not turn back before any." The lion, which is mightiest among beasts, does not turn back before any. And that is actually the quote that I used today. So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my stories. And I posted this verse in relationship to an image and some music, if you will. But I love this. And I think this is essential. This right here, again, Proverbs 30:30, highlights how the lion is something that we as men, Christian men, in the world that we find ourselves, can take on those attributes, that we are up against real power, real evil, real sinister intentions, but we must be lions. We must face it courageously. We must be as bold as a lion. We must have only fear for the judgment of God if we're going to really make our way through this and not become complicit, acquiesce to the demands of our enemies. We have to be like a lion, if you will. And so that was one that I also appreciated. That was Proverbs 30:30, that a lion which is mightiest among beasts and does not turn back before any. Now, the very famous part about the devil as a prowling lion, I wanted to read that real quick. So the more negative verse, the one that most people tend to think of, or some tend to think of when they don't immediately think of Christ as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, they'll think of 1 Peter chapter 5:8, which reads, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." So we also must stay alert, stay on our guard, because the nature of the enemy is also analogous to some of these characteristics of the lion, like prowling, like seeking after our own souls. So Hosea chapter 13 was another one that I wanted to share with you guys. And so Hosea chapter 13 verse 7 reads, "So I am to them like a lion, like a leopard, I will lurk beside the way." Psalm 104 verse 21, I actually like this one quite a bit. Psalm 104 verse 21 reads, "The young lions roar for their prey, seeking their food from God." And so this verse specifically from Psalm, I thought really would speak well to a lot of the young men that have gone on this sort of trajectory, this transition from whether you were New Age or atheist or whatever spiritual form or label you'd want to place on yourself. Somehow, one way or another, through God's providence, through the will of the Holy Spirit and one's own will trying to find truth, you have encountered Christianity. Maybe you're looking more into orthodoxy. Hopefully you are. That verse then, that the young lions roar for their prey, seeking their food from God, I think can symbolize many of us in regards to being younger in our sort of life developments. I mean, I'm not too young. I'm 31, but I'm not married. I'm single. And that would insinuate me as being maybe a little bit younger, a bachelor, if you will. But I love this quote, that they roar for their prey, seeking their food from God. And we also should seek our food from God, whether that be success in all of its forms. Success in regards to finding a wife, success in regards to having children, success in regards to its more direct meanings, in regards to being wealthy, attaining money, attaining status, building up a business if that's what you're trying to do. And so again, we need to look to God for those things. Look for God's guidance, look for God's will to be done, and that we can be conduits and tools of Him. So the next one then, I only have two more verses here and we can move on. It was Numbers chapter 23 through 24, or chapter 23 and verse 24. Numbers chapter 23 verse 24. Let me find that. Okay, and it says, "Behold, a people, as a lioness it rises up, and as a lion it lifts itself. It does not lie down until it has devoured the prey and drunk the blood of the slain." So the reason why I included this one is because the people it's talking about are really the tribe of Israel. And so us as Orthodox, us as traditional Christians, understand who the real Israel is. That is you and I and the true church, the Orthodox Church. And so this book, or this verse in the book of Numbers, I thought was interesting. It says that, "Behold a people," talking about Israel, "who you and I are now, the fulfillers of the second covenant. As a lioness, it rises up, and as a lion, it lifts itself. It does not lie down until it has devoured the prey and drunk the blood of the slain." So a bit gratuitous in regards to the devouring of the prey and the drinking of the blood, but I couldn't help but thinking of a drinking of the blood related to the Eucharist, but I'm sure there's something different that the church teaches. I didn't pull up the Orthodox footnotes for that verse. Maybe I should have. I'm ill prepared, if you will. The last verse I have is actually from the book of Revelation as well, and it's chapter 10, verse 8. This is the last verse I want to share with you guys. And just looking over some of the biblical symbolism of the lion. That's all I'm doing here. I was doing a word search for verses that use the word lion. And Revelation chapter 10, verse 8 reads, "Then the voice that I had heard from heaven spoke to me again, saying, 'Go, take the scroll that is open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land.'" Oh, never mind. That is not the one I wanted to read. Where is... There it is. "And called out with a loud voice." It's also Revelation chapter 10, verse 3, not verse 8. Revelation chapter 10, verse 3, I'm sorry. "And called out with a loud voice like a lion roaring. When he called out, the seven thunders sounded." Obviously, again, the lion opening the seven seals of the scroll. When he called out, we see the seven thunders sounded. We see a dominion over nature, if we will. We see another instance representing Christ as the Lion of Judah. That was the only reason why I included that verse from the book of Revelation, chapter 10, verse 3. So now we're done with that. Those are some of the biblical verses and just looking at how the lion is used. Now, there's a few things that I wanted to read. The first one is, what is the significance of lions in the Bible? There's a very interesting little article that I found, and I want to read that and share it with you guys now. So, the question is, what is the significance of lions in the Bible? And it reads, "Lions are legendary for their strength, beauty, and fearlessness. The lion has been called the king of the beasts and the king of the jungle, and in the Bible, Jesus is called the Lion of Judah," reference to Revelation 5:5. "The lion symbolism expands our understanding of baby Jesus in the manger," Luke 2:7, "and the suffering Savior on the cross," Isaiah 53:7, revealing Jesus as the conquering King of Kings, a roaring lion taking vengeance on his enemies, reference to Revelation 19:16. Lions are mentioned in several contexts throughout Scripture, sometimes positively to describe God, Hosea chapter 11, verse 10, one that I read, and sometimes negatively as symbolic of evil and destruction, Proverbs chapter 28, verse 15. Peter compares Satan to a roaring lion and warns us to be wary of the enemy's schemes that will destroy us. Again, that famous verse from 1 Peter 5:8. A lion's roar can be heard up to 5 miles away and is intended to terrify all who hear it. Lions roar to establish their territory and to communicate their power, but a roar can do nothing. It is threatening but powerless unless we give in to fear and allow the lion to overtake us. Our enemy, Satan, roars his threats, doubts, and accusations in an effort to terrify us into giving up so he can defeat us. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11 through 16 reference. But even the threat of a roaring lion cannot overcome those who stand firm in the armor of the Lord. Reference to Romans 8:37. Probably the most familiar mention to lions in the Bible is found in the story of the prophet Daniel. This godly man was thrown into a lion's den for refusing to obey the Persian king's ban on prayer. The lion's den was sure destruction for anyone tossed inside. Yet, God showed his authority, a characteristic of lions themselves, right? Showed his authority over even the most powerful of beasts by shutting the lions' mouths. Daniel, rather than come to a gruesome demise, emerged from the den unharmed. Lions are featured in the description of the cherubim surrounding God's throne. Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 14 says, "Each of the cherubim had 4 faces. One face was that of a cherub, the second, the face of a human being, the third, the face of a lion, and the fourth, the face of an eagle." Some assert that the presence of the lion's face may symbolize the boldness and strength of God's character. Other scholars suggest the lion's face represents God's rule over the wild beasts. And I do want to highlight there that one of the things that's really interesting is that within the biblical context, but even outside it, we see a dichotomy between the eagle and the lion, and that the eagle being the sort of lion of the sky. So I think that's really interesting to think about. We see it in the Bible here in regards to Ezekiel, but in the description of the cherubim. But I think that's interesting how, from my studies, that the eagle is often the opposite or the reflected figure, the aerial figure of the lion, which is more terrestrial. So just want to throw that out. Lions are featured in the Isaiah 11 describes the coming era when Jesus reigns on earth. Peace and harmony will dominate even the animal kingdom. Verse 6 paints a picture of this. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a child will lead them. That was what I wanted to reference in regards to the second coming of Christ leads to the lion actually laying down next to the calf. The image of lions laying peacefully beside baby calves describes a world restored to its original state. Isaiah chapter 65 verse 25 continues this idea. Quote, "The wolf and the lamb will feed together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox, but the food of the serpent will be dust." Unquote. That is a reference to Genesis chapter 1 verse 30. Ultimate peace has been established when carnivores no longer kill to eat, and in the millennial kingdom, the king of beasts is tamed. The Bible uses hundreds of metaphors and images to describe the indestructible nature of God Almighty. Animals and other forms of nature can help us understand specific aspects of God's character. Jesus is called the Lamb of God, John 1:36, to illustrate his gentleness and willingness to be the sacrifice for our sins. But he is also called the Lion of the tribe of Judah, to display his absolute authority and power over all creation. A lion may be the king of the jungle, but the Lion of Judah is the King of Kings. And so I thought that was a really good article, very interesting. And it highlighted much of the things that I was trying to speak about earlier, but in a much more systematic way. Now, in regards to the Orthodox context, there's a few things that I also want to say is that we have two saints. I was trying to look at Orthodox icons that include lions. And what I found were two prominent, the two most prominent icons that featured lions were the first of Saint Mammus. And so here is his icon. I have it pulled up here. And so Saint Mammus of Caesarea, that is Mammes of Caesarea. He was a child martyr. So this is really interesting. I'll explain why they use the lion in his icon. Some of you may already be familiar with this saint. I was not, so this was totally novel information to myself. That's why I want to share it. But Mammus was a child martyr of the 3rd century, and he was martyred in Caesarea. And his parents, Theodotus and Rufina, they were also martyred. Saint Mammus was actually born in prison because his parents were in prison for being Christian. So he was born in prison. He became an orphan when his parents were executed. After their death, Mammus was raised by a rich widow named Amia, who died when Mammus was 15 years old. According to, hold on, let me see this real quick. Yes, according to legend, Mammus was tortured for his faith by the governor of Caesarea and was then sent before the Roman Emperor Aurelian, who tortured him again. The Mammus legend states that an angel then liberated him and ordered him to hide himself on a mountain near Caesarea. Mammus was later thrown to the lions, but he managed to make the beasts docile by preaching to them. Afterward, a lion remained with him as companion. Accompanied by the lion, he visited Duke Alexander, who sentenced him to death. He was struck in the stomach with a trident, bleeding. Mammus dragged himself to a spot near a theater before his soul was carried into heaven by angels. And so I thought that was very interesting. I wasn't aware of this particular saint, but that is his story and why he is on top of a lion. He actually tamed lions. Now, the other one that I have is There we go. Make it a little bigger. This one is of Gerasimus of the Jordan. Saint Gerasimus of the Jordan. And Saint Gerasimus of the Jordan was a Christian saint, monk, and abbot of the 5th century AD. And his little story about how he became acquainted with lions, I think those of you who may be a little bit more familiar with Greek mythology may hear something a little bit reminiscent. And so whether this happened or not, I don't know. But this is the tradition related to Gerasimus of the Jordan, St. Gerasimus of the Jordan. And it says the story of Gerasimus of the lion, when the saint tamed the animal by removing a thorn from its paw, it taught it obedience, became widely known in the Christian world. A parallel tale is preserved by St. Jerome, but as has been argued, the tale of Jerome may have been derived from a confusion with the exploits of Gerasimus, as Jerome in later Latin is Geronimus. But so the legend is that he took a thorn out of the paw of a lion and then tamed it, taught it obedience. And so most of the icons of St. Gerasimus include a lion. And so those were two of the more prominent saints. I also thought it was very interesting to see the historic domain of lions. Some of you guys may be aware of this, but what I'm showing you now is the historic domain of lions. Did lions ever exist in Europe? There are questions. Potentially they did. Certainly they existed in most of Africa. And then what's interesting and what is highlighted really by the biblical use of lions so frequently, as well as India and other places, is that lions were present in much of the Middle East and Central Asia, all the way over to India. And it wasn't more of their persecution, potentially changes in climate and stuff like that, where their numbers have dwindled. But I thought it's very interesting to see the historical domain of lions and how wide they actually were. And potentially, I mean, look at it, they're even present in Eastern Europe there. So pretty interesting. I mean, even in the ancient Byzantine Empire, there's very, very potential chances that they were actually encountering lions. So wanted to just share that with you guys as well. Now, another dimension in regards to all this stuff is that the lions, early Christians were actually fed to the lions. So when we look at like the gladiators, when we look at the trials that many of the early Christians had to face during their persecution, lions, the beasts, were just like Samson having to take on the lion, right? Well, Christians had to do the same thing. So being fed to the lions really was the point in which martyrdom, or early Christianity spread due to martyrdom and its celebration and its practice. So martyrdom was essential for the spread of our faith, and a lot of people were martyrs to lions themselves in the Colosseum in front of other people. So sad. And the other thing that I wanted to read was in regards to Jesus as the lion. And Jesus as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So let me read this to you guys now in regards to, we'll be looking at the Lion of the tribe of Judah, why the lion is worthy to open the seals, the lion is powerful to open seals, and then the lion as conqueror, and how that relates to our understanding of Christ. And then I want to get into my general comments on masculinity and why I think the lion is a good symbol for us. So in regards to Revelation chapter 5, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, in Revelation chapter 5:5, we meet Jesus as, quote, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He has entered the throne room of God. Previously, John was weeping because no one was found worthy to open seals, which kept a scroll hidden from everyone. Upon seeing the lion, an angel announces that one worthy of opening the seals has arrived. Lions are terrifying creatures. They have amazing strength, can leap unbelievable heights, and can go from laying down to sprinting faster than we can blink. Historically, kings and nations have used the lion as a symbol of power and authority. The Bible uses lions in much the same way. In this apocalyptic book, Jesus will fulfill many ideas about lions found throughout the rest of the Bible. Let's look at how he does that. The lion is worthy to open the seals. Proverbs chapter 28 verse 1 shows us that lions can represent those who are righteous. Because of their good conduct, they can have boldness. They have no retribution to fear from the Lord and can expect his blessings. Jesus is the ultimate fulfillment of this image. He did all things well. Reference to Mark chapter 7 verse 37. Jesus was sinless and therefore worthy of standing in the presence of God. I do really like this. I'll make my own comment here, that the way that the one interpretation of the lion from Scripture is that the lion can be bold because it only fears God. And so seeing how then Christ is the ultimate embodiment of that sort of characteristic that we associate, I thought that's really interesting. From the beginning, God has been seeking for faithful people. Hebrews 11 highlights some faithful people, but none were perfectly faithful. Jesus is the first person to give God what he desires, perfect faith in all things. He alone worthy to honor and open the seals. I don't like the phrasing that Jesus is the first person to give God what he desires. It sounds, again, this is, a Protestant wrote this article, so it sounds too much like penal substitution, atonement theology, and that Christ had to give something, that there was a debt that needed to be paid, right? This sort of very juridical form of Christ's atonement. Maybe us as Orthodox aren't too fond of that, but we can keep moving on. The lion is powerful to open the seals. The lion is also powerful to break the seals. Being worthy isn't enough. He also has to be strong enough. Sin does not make us unworthy. Sin makes us weak. We're still learning how sin changes us. The more we learn about the human brain, the more we see how deep-seated and how powerfully sin takes control of our lives. Every time we sin, we create and strengthen neural pathways that will cause us to prefer sin in the future. In effect, our past choices have a powerful influence on our future choices. If we consistently choose sin, we are weakening our desires to choose the righteous later. Jesus, though he lived in the same sin-scarred world as us, never personally chose sin. He never weakened himself as we have. Additionally, when God glorified Christ, he restored all that Jesus didn't hold unto reference to Philippians chapter 2, verse 5 through 11. Jesus' perfect obedience resulted in God highly exalting him. And it is from this powerful position that Christ is now able to open the seals. We have a Savior who is not only worthy, but also strong as a lion. That gives us hope. Now, my only contention with this part was that Christ's perfect obedience resulted in God highly exalting him. It seems like it's pushing a little bit too much Nestorianism, if you will, that it's not highlighting that Jesus' will and God, the Father's will, were one and the same, though they were different persons. And so, I don't know. Some of you may also take a little bit of umbrage at the way that is worded. I think it could be, it would be worded a little bit different from an Orthodox perspective. I just want to highlight that. And the last paragraph that I wanted to read on this section, it says, the lion is conqueror. The picture of Jesus as a lion is more than a cool symbol. It gives us hope because Jesus is the conquering king. He is more powerful than sin and able to defeat death. If Jesus is our friend, then we don't have to fear either of those things. Again, Jesus is our friend, but we don't fear death because Jesus is our friend. We only fear God. And I mean, maybe I'm splitting hairs here, and it's just, but if Jesus is our friend, then we don't have to fear either of those things, meaning sin or death. Jesus is God. He's a little bit more than our friend, so I don't know. In the open plains, the only better than a lion is a bigger lion. Satan is the devouring lion in 1 Peter 5:8. We should have a healthy fear of him. However, we should not be terrified of him because we have a bigger lion on our side, Jesus. He is the reason for our hope, and one day he will return to take us all home in glory. Agreed. I was highlighting that same thing earlier. I thought that was, and that's where I got it, is actually from this paragraph. I thought that was insightful. but the healthy fear of Satan, we should certainly be, we should have discernment. How much we should fear Satan, I'm not so sure about. We should certainly have caution. We should also be on edge. We should be alert and aware of the enemy. But from my understanding, we should only fear the judgment of God himself. And so maybe they're trying to use fear in a less theological framework or something, but just wanted to highlight that. But generally speaking, I thought that was a pretty decent article and wanted to share that with you guys. So that concludes the biblical references to things. I did have a whole thing here that I was going to read. If you guys want, let me know in the comment. I'll read it. I have no problem reading it. This one is more of the sort of secular ways in which the lion has been used. Exactly, okay. He says, fear is of Satan. I totally agree. Oh, and also the Chronicles of Narnia. I just saw Annie said that. I had, let's see if I can find it. I did have something pulled up in regards to the lion in the Chronicles of Narnia, because C.S. Lewis, picking up on the exact thing that I'm talking about, he discusses how the lion in the Chronicles of Narnia is the embodiment of Christ. And so the lion then in the Chronicles of Narnia is a sort of voice for Jesus in his sort of, mystical, magical world, his novel. But C.S. Lewis was on board with basically what we're talking about today, no doubt. How then can the lion work for contemporary men? Well, I have 5 areas where I think, again, we have to be careful about pride. We have to be careful about all this stuff. But really, these 5 areas are where I believe and why I believe I'm going to use the lion as a logo, a symbol, a motif moving forward, because of how applicable it is to sort of the absent qualities of general men. Not all of us. I think most of us are all on the right path. That's why we're here and we have the conversations we have. But the first one, thinking about what the lion represents, what it embodies, and then the contemporary man, the first one I thought about is, are they courageous? We're talking about contemporary man. So each point here I framed as, are they ? And this is regards to the lion symbolism. So are they courageous? Is the contemporary man courageous in taking on that sort of courageous quality of the lion? It's hard to see. It's very hard to see right now. And what I wrote down, the first one is masks. How many people are actually fighting against the wearing of the masks? How many people actually have courage to be ostracized by society, to get all the stares, to even, have public humility or humiliation? I'm sorry, not humility, but humiliation, right? People berating you, mocking you, making fun of you for not wearing a mask or refusing the vaccine or something like that. And how many men we have that are so weak in this country and around the world, specifically in the Western world, or really just Eastern Europe, Western Europe, whatever, it don't matter. We have so many weak men that they are going to capitulate. They're going to wear their mask. In fact, they'll probably get their football team, like this is this is what they're doing, the men who are supposed to be defending our society from nonsense, from tyrannical policies, from sinister intentions that are part of the historical combat of this world. They're too busy watching football and college football, and they're making sure that they get their NFL sponsored face masks so that they can wear out in public to show everybody that they're a winner, because I'm a Steelers fan. And although they didn't do too good last night, I did watch the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game. That didn't go well in their favor. But I just said that because they were a prominent team this year. I don't really watch the NFL due to personal political reasons. I don't support that. But how many men are actually courageous in our society? How many men are actually courageous? And I'm not saying we have plenty. I mean, some of you guys may have seen the video recently of the gym owner who he did a video that was really going viral around social media, where he's holding up these pieces of paper and basically showing that how much he's been fined, how the local authorities are trying to shut them down, and how free men don't ask for permission. And then there's no masks, no mandates. They're open. People are in the gym working out. I love that video, and that highlights real courage. So think about that one video, and what's being symbolized within that video is we see one man. One, he had a beard, so we could tie that to the mane of the lion, if you will. He's inside a gym. He owns a business, right? So he's a leader. He's a leader, at least of his business, of his gym. He's making money. He's providing for his family. And then the whole atmosphere is about power and strength and fitness. So it's very interesting then when you just look at these symbolic qualities of what his gym and what he is doing represents versus the general tendencies of society right now. Pretty sad. Again, guys, if you can smash that like button, I would greatly appreciate that. Always helps. So yeah, pretty sad. The mask. What's another one? Where are men being courageous right now? What about the lockdowns? Again, tied to this gym owner, he's actually violating the lockdown to make money, to provide for his family, to be what the role of a Christian man is supposed to be. Whether he's Christian or not, I have no idea. But those attributes of masculinity, he's certainly reaching into that bag, that traditional Christian bag of qualities related to men's role in the family, men's role in society. So that's another one. Another one is giving up freedom for safety. How uncourageous is that? How uncourageous when you look at leftist men, progressive men, even the neoconservatives, the general sentiment, I would say it's a minority opinion amongst men to be so in opposition to a lot of this mask stuff. Maybe deep down they say it, but then they go to the store and they put on their mask and they do everything that they're told to do. There's no resistance whatsoever. Meanwhile, they may have a resist t-shirt on regarding to Donald Trump or something. I mean, it's so dumb. But people are literally giving up personal freedom for quote unquote public safety. For safety. What is more cucked? What is least masculine than to give up one's freedom, one's autonomy for somebody else to provide you safety? When in reality, it is your role to provide safety for your family, your wife, your children, your society, other people. You see, that isn't it funny then when we look at the inversion of the man who wants to give up freedom for safety, that they're actually giving up the role in which they themselves are supposed to occupy to allow the government to occupy that position. Same thing happened in the black community with welfare when we look at the men leaving the homes and the government basically occupying that role as provider through the welfare system. We see the same thing. We see men vacating their responsibilities as men to allow the government to occupy that role. The same thing is true with any man who wants to give up personal freedom for public safety. That is weak. That is absolutely in opposition to, I think, the qualities that every Christian man should embody. Another one is, and it's related to the football criticism. I didn't even realize I already went there, but they want to be entertained. They want to be entertained. Look at the state of the world right now. Look at the state of our country right now. We're on the precipice of a real civil war. And I mean, how many men are actually willing to do something where the majority just want to be entertained? Entertained through movies, entertained through sports, entertained through pornography, entertained one way or another. That they're the docility of men, they're so docile, right? And that's part of the feminization. And we're going to get to that on the next point. We're going to get to, are they strong or powerful? I have a whole thing, so I don't want to jump ahead. But men are so docile that they, instead of finding real meaning in the world right now by actually occupying traditional roles and trying to stand up for what you believe in, which is going to infuse your life and your daily activity with more meaning, they'd rather be entertained. They'd rather be entertained. And that is the absolute opposite of any form of courage. And so the last one then, are they courageous, is look at men and their conformity in today's world. And that can be presented in different ways. Their conformity, that could be presented through their acquiescence to the mask. It could be presented through their acceptance of the stabbies. It could be conformity in regards to their opinions, right? Just, I mean, you could look at the soy face, right? There's a form of conformity there. It's interesting how these motifs, they just continue to go on, like the soy face, the hipster, the beard as a faux form of masculinity, because at the same time they were so emasculated within their own lives. They're so emasculated amongst all their relationships with women that they try to wear a flannel and have a beard and try to present themselves in any posturing of normal masculinity, though it's completely absent within themselves. So conformity in their styles. I mean, conformity, it also goes outside the sort of hipster thing, but think of like sneaker culture. Think of just the conformity of people's choices in music, people's choices in like having to get the latest sneakers. I remember just a few months ago, during the height of all the George Floyd stuff, we have all this societal unrest or racial tensions, whatever, and Nike comes out with a new Jordan and it's lined up for blocks. Like, why are you so concerned with consuming a tennis shoe if you're at the same time talking about all, society is all against me and all that? It's just conformity. It's just conformity. BLM, a sign of conformity, right? The virtue signaling, a sign of conformity. And, what's sad for me, like even within country music, somebody like a Tyler Childers, somebody I really enjoy listening to. I like his stuff. He came out like with his most recent album, basically denigrating and attacking the very base that supports him in Eastern Kentucky because he supports BLM, because he's a wealthy individual that's successful, that's connected with elite people. He then degrades people that are poor, that live in Appalachia, that, they're trying to preserve, that they're literally, the entire institutional structure wants to do away with them. And he wants to then be a representative of them, but also degrade them because they don't support BLM enough. I mean, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And that's a form of conformity, and that's a form of emasculation, because men are only supposed to conform to God. And if you're conforming to a cultural trend, if you're conforming to a television show, if you're conforming to social justice ideology that's rooted in leftist postmodern nonsense, then you are emasculated. You are weak. You are not. You're not a role model for men. So sorry, I had my little Tyler Childers rant there. I apologize. The next one. So the first one is, are they courageous? And I think to a large degree we see no, and to a degree we're seeing yes, right? So the beautiful part about 2020, as I said at the beginning of the year, relating to the sort of symbolic archetypal motif of 2020 vision and things becoming more and more clear, is that as this COVID stuff goes on, it has become more and more and more clear who in your life you can trust, right? Who in your life actually has a backbone? Who in your life actually can put 2 and 2 together to get 4? That what's been so revealing about all this stuff is the inability of people to think, the lack of selfhood that people have. I mean, and it's the fear, again, the fear that's not directed by the judgment of God Almighty after you're dead. That's not what they fear. They fear dying. They fear losing things. They fear humiliation. They fear not fitting in. They have all these worldly fears, and in so doing, they fall lockstep into the world. It's crazy. It's crazy. So 2020 has been great at finding out who conforms and who does not, who is an individual and who is not, who actually is thinking and who is not. It's not that you have to have the same opinion as me, not at all. It's just that you have to at least not be totally bought into propaganda that is absolutely not true. And that's what's so sad is amongst intelligent people, they're the most brainwashed because their paradigm is dependent on all that stuff being true. Again, another side rant, but this is something I was thinking about, is one of the reasons why I think when I'm in the academy or I'm dealing with scholars or people of different persuasions, professional people, right, who seem overwhelmingly more in favor of leftist, liberal ideology, voted for Biden, Harris, all this crap. I'm thinking, how can you be intelligent, which clearly they can in regards to the laboratories that they work in, this or that. How can you be intelligent and also be doing what you're doing unless that you almost are forced to adopt, right? You're almost forced to support Joe Biden. You're almost forced to support BLM, because if those things aren't true, all the other framework, all the structure to one's paradigm falls apart. Because if those things aren't true, then the authority that you've given to the Fortune 500 corporations in regards to your morality, buying your Nikes to symbolize how you're down with BLM, right? The whole framework falls apart if all that stuff actually isn't true. If the World Health Organization isn't really concerned about your health, if the CDC, if the FBI who's talking about Russia collusion, I mean, it's like their whole worldview is built upon the transition of institutional power moving towards globalism. And because of that transition and institutional structure, their worldview is dependent on all that stuff being true. And again, how can you, to a degree, blame them? Because they have nothing pulling them out of it. A lot of them aren't religious, or they're not upholding a traditional form of Christianity, which would give you perspective and bring you out of that paradigm. They don't really have that. So instead, they have to believe what CNN tells them. They have to believe what because if they don't, what else in their paradigm do they have to give up that doesn't make sense? And I think that is the fear for a lot of people. Yeah, mega. That's okay. I agreed. I'm agreeing with you guys, but I'm not going to say anything due to the algorithm. So moving on to the next point. The first one is for contemporary men, why is the lion a useful symbol? Are men courageous today? And I would say for a large portion, we would say, no, they're not really courageous or even exuding courageous qualities whatsoever. So that was number one. Number two is, are they strong and powerful? Are contemporary men strong and powerful? The overwhelming conversation I have with older people, whether it be women, men, people my age or younger, is talking about how emasculated young men are and the way that their bodies look. And I've talked about this before, and it's one of the things that prompted me at the beginning of the year to want to do Logos Fitness and really build myself up so then I can show other people how to do that, is the emasculated male of really the 21st century is so skinny. They're skinny. They do not have broad shoulders. I mean, broad shoulders almost a rare quality nowadays. And they're just so docile, right? They're so docile. And I think that's where we get, again, the virtue signaling and the Twitter outrage, the social media outrage, is that if you are somebody who actually can't make a difference in the world because you yourself are so emasculated, you're so weak, you're not well put together, you really don't have anything to stand on, there's nothing else to do but then get outraged on social media to demonstrate your courage, to demonstrate your power and your strength and your morality and all these different things, because there's nothing really there. The docile soy male, right? Think of, again, just the stereotype of the soy eater. And it's funny because when you actually meet somebody who eats a lot of soy, it's almost all the stereotypes almost always true. At least in maybe I'm wrong. That's just my experience of the world, is that the man who's eating a lot of soy, they almost always fit the stereotype of a soy boy. But low T, right? I've had Dr. Mo come on multiple times on this channel. He is an expert in men's health, an expert in testosterone. And what does he tell us? That testosterone levels are so dramatically down that this is basically a cultural crisis. This is a health crisis. Men's testosterone levels are so low. So when we look at the undifferentiated physique of men and women, and how basically we see the androgynous movement, we see the feminization of men and the masculinization of women is bringing the dichotomy closer and closer and closer to this hermaphroditic androgynous middle point, which is tied to transhumanism, globalism, the dissolution of boundaries themselves, what I've talked about over and over and over again, that the low T is so prominent within our society. We have to do things in opposition to combat that. We have to lift weights. We have to eat more meat. We have to do things that are going to help build our testosterone, because we're being attacked. That the globalist agenda has already altered our food. Our food, it's in our water. It's in everything that we put in our mouths, that they're feminizing us. There's estrogen in it. And we see the problem with men. And so again, this quality, are they strong and powerful? Yes, we still have tons of strong and powerful men, but they themselves, who are those qualities, are moving so directly in opposition to culture right now that they're called toxic, right? Because you're exuding toxic masculinity if you are strong and powerful, and you just implement that into the world. So the low T, the immature body structure of most young guys, guys under the age of like 25. I was shocked. I substitute taught. So I would go to a high school. This was, I don't know, like 5 years ago. I was a substitute teacher. And that was another thing, is I couldn't believe how, I was like, was I this small in high school? It didn't seem like it. Maybe I was, but I was just blown away by how skinny all the guys were. Not all of them. Some of them were football players. Some of them, looked like, they're on the football team. They look like a guy. But I was really surprised. That was 5 years ago. I'm sure it's only getting worse now. But yeah. So are they strong and powerful? Generally speaking, we still have tons of those men, but we as Christian men can take that strong and powerful symbolism of the lion, of the male lion, right? With his mane, symbolizing masculinity, the ultimate symbol of masculine energy. And we can look that and bring that back on ourselves. Are we strong and powerful? Unfortunately, for many men, the soy, the low T, the undeveloped, immature body structures, they're not strong and powerful. And in fact, society is telling them that to become strong and powerful is to become toxic. It's become toxic masculinity. To become a man is to have toxic masculinity. To be an emasculated, feminized boy, that is the man of the future right there. And again, it's against nature, it's against God, it's against logos, it's against the order of everything. And so we will win in the end. All we have to do is fix ourselves. Work on ourselves, get a relationship with God, and start putting your house in order. There's something where we can agree, I guess, with old Dr. Peterson. But put your own house in order, and then you can combat, the frailties of society. Again, like I've said before, most of our enemies aren't going to reproduce from one way or another, whether it's abortion, whether it's sterile sexual activities, whether they're going to get the stabby and be infertile, that we will win in the long run. We always will, whether that's the coming of Christ, whether that's, maybe the book of Revelation isn't for another 1,000 years or so. We don't know that, but we can move society in the opposite direction by really just embodying the things that we actually talk about, the things that we believe in. And yeah, I'll leave that there. So then we can be strong and powerful. We will win in the end, right? It may be, it's not our generation, right? Because you and I, we're going to find women and men, husbands and wives. We're going to have children. That's going to be a minority of society. But within the next generation and the generation after that, we're going to be, in our values and our progeny, we're going to be a step ahead because we're already planning long term. We're reproducing. We have tradition. We have foundation. We have teachings that are going to be passed on. And ultimately, the truth of all, we have God on our side. We have God on our side. So again, that lion, as Proverbs 30:30 says, we have to face whatever comes at us, right? Even back on the talk on masculinity, comes back to a man must face everything on his feet. The same thing that a lion never turns away from any other beast. We can take that on to ourselves. The next one, I kind of belabor that point. Are they strong and powerful? So the first one is, are they courageous? Are they strong and powerful? And then the third one is, are they protectors? Right? I talked about the historical symbolism of lions often was put on amulets and various talismans to embody protection. So if you needed protection from evil, you needed protection from evil spirits, you needed protection from illness, you needed protection from a wild beast, often cultures would use a lion to symbolize that, to put that on a particular stone, a piece of wood, a particular type of fabric, whatever it may be. So protection is a top quality or characteristic related to the lion, both the lion and the lioness, right? I've talked to you about, historically speaking, the lioness was deemed to be like the ultimate symbol of motherhood, that the lioness hunts, the lioness takes care of the cubs, the lioness is extremely fierce, and really the lioness, there's nothing more dominant than the lioness than the lion, right? So there's a lot of interesting symbolism to go down with the lioness and motherhood and modern women potentially, because what we would see then is the strength of the lioness is really a woman taking on much of the traditional qualities, right? Being a mother, really her whole life being geared towards the protection of those children and the development of those children, and being a sort of go-getter in the world, not for money, not for status, not for a corporation that doesn't care about you, and trying to become basically a sterile man, you're trying to be a woman in a man's world. That's not what makes the lioness incredible. It's that she is absolutely fierce and ferocious for the family, for the cubs, right? And so how many women are actually thinking in regards to those ways and in regards to women's strength, right? They want to talk about how strong women are, and then they point to some woman who's had 2 abortions, who's on birth control and works a 9 to 5. What is strong about that? The real strength would be a woman who's actually embodying the characteristics of nature itself in regards to how we understand strength and strength of a woman. So, just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's interesting. But are they protectors? And so this is for men, generally speaking, and this is why I'm talking to contemporary men and why the lion is a useful symbol. Are they courageous? We've talked about how many men are exuding absolutely uncourageous behavior. Are they strong and powerful? How many men are not? And that doesn't mean you have to be a bodybuilder. It doesn't mean you have to be a power lifter. It can be your presence, right? Just the strong and powerfulness, the way that you approach the world. So the third one is, are they protectors? And I would say, unfortunately, though many of us ourselves right now, where we, in the last, say, 2 to 5 years, we've put the pieces together. We see the paradigms. We see the systemic problems of post-Enlightenment thought, of especially for Orthodox, of the development of Christian thought post-schism, if you will, to go all the way back to 1054, that we see our lives, our investigations, our studies, for many of us has brought us to the point of seeing the state of the world, therefore becoming Christian, trying to move in opposition to much of this stuff. And therefore we now can be protectors of society, right? Whether that be you or I or our friends, or even just you don't have an online presence whatsoever. You're just a man who found a woman that you love and you have children and you take care of that family. That is actually moving in the right direction. For so many of us, we were part of the whole globalist operation. At one point, many of us were a part of that, and it took our own will tied with God's favor and mercy to take us out of it, to now be where we're at. And so when I talk about the collapse of society and tradition, I'm not talking necessarily about us here, but we can point a finger, I would say, obviously, what level of critique you want to get at is different. So we could look at post-Enlightenment thought critiques. That'd be one way, looking at secularism and Adam Smith ideas of capitalism and all this stuff, parts of which I agree with. I agree with private property and stuff like that. But again, there'd be a more nuanced conversation there. Or we could just point more specifically in regards to the last 100 years to the baby boomers. And the baby boomers growing up with the television and the radio was the first generation to absolutely be indoctrinated into contemporary consumerism. And so because they were brought up in the consumeristic framework, that is tied to them being absent with tradition, evolving their morality, right? There was, and then we see the 1960s counterculture and all that stuff. So men protect society. Men need a foundation to stand on. They need something to protect. And so when we look at the contemporary man, how many of them, one, have a tradition to defend? How many of them have a family to defend? And without those things, how can you be a protector? And are you fulfilling your masculine obligation? Right? The collapse of the nuclear family then is really a collapse in a way of the role of man being the protector of the family, but of society generally speaking. So when we look at divorce rates, when we look at the destruction of the nuclear family, look again, post 1960s, how can we not correlate the degradation of society with the dissolution of the family, with the displacement of man as the protector, which then many of us rediscover in orthodoxy of a all-male clergy of men protecting and defending something, tradition, truth, theology, right? Something that's historically based, something that is also transcendent, that the collapse of society, the rejection of tradition, the destruction of the nuclear family, again, are catalysts in one way or another for many of us to then find orthodoxy and see how it stands in opposition to some of this stuff. And so the question I would ask in regards to are they protectors is, it's not that men don't protect things, because they clearly do. It's just a form of possession, if you really. So what is it that men protect in 2020? What is it that men are protecting in 2020? And I would say for many people, it's a covetousness of creation in one way or another, right? So they're protecting their own wealth. They're protecting their job. They're protecting their ability to pay for that car. How many people are going out on a limb to protect tradition, to protect truth, to protect their families, in a real way? I mean, just like disobeying these lockdowns, I am astonished. I'm absolutely astonished, for example, in California, why more men and businesses aren't just opening. Why are they acquiescing to all this stuff? And I think there's multiple reasons there. One of them may or may not be a laziness in regards to getting a check from the government and just staying at home all day. I mean, a man like and this is why it's tied to protection. How many men, that's why I was highlighting the gym owner earlier, who absolutely is standing up in opposition to the lockdowns. He's opening his gym. He's standing up for truth, standing up for freedom. What are contemporary men protecting? They're not even protecting their ability to make money, right? We live in a world right now where these lockdowns are obviously, the whole intention is to destroy small business. So then global corporations or even the Chinese can come in and buy up real estate, fill up those business and build smart grids. It's not rocket science. They want to dissolve the small business in the fabric, the cultural fabric of cities. So then the smart grids can come in, the Chinese can occupy. And it takes men. Men have to protect their business. Men have to protect their family and the society and the tradition. So that is what the lion symbolizes. The lion is all about protection of the pride, protection of the cubs, protection of the lioness to take care of the cubs. And so again, we see, in my opinion, why the lion is an appropriate symbol for the contemporary man to adopt. And again, and as I've mentioned before, and I'm not going to belabor this point, this is why people, I think young men are so attracted to Orthodoxy, because they find a masculinized form of Christianity. They find a remnant of the way in which order is supposed to be. They discover the logos of relationships, of the dynamic between male and female that men defend. Men defend the tradition, they defend God, they defend truth, they defend everything that is precious. And it is on the women to exist within those protected boundaries to nurture and develop. And so when you don't have those two roles occupied, again, Satan is prowling like a lesser lion outside, and he can't wait to come in and devour. And that's exactly what's happened to our society, without question. So are they protectors? I would say a lot of people aren't, unfortunately. The next one that I have, again, I had 5. This is the fourth one. The fourth point of why I think the lion is a great symbol for the contemporary man is, are they kings of their own kingdom? Are you a king of your own kingdom? And I say this not in a way in which we're supposed to have this sort of egotistical, narcissistic framework that you are a king, that you are Louis, you are King Henry, you are whoever, you're Emperor Justinian. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Christ is the King of Kings, the King of Kings. But because of the role of Adam and Eve and who Adam was supposed to be as the priest of creation, also we are called to be sort of, when we get married, right? The king and queen of creation, you're crowned with your wife. Orthodoxy has this within our theology, that when I say a king of your kingdom, I mean somebody who's really in control of your space, of your life, of your home, of the environment you occupy. Are you a king? Do you have dominion? Do you have responsibility? And so some of the things that I wrote down is the masculine role of men and fathers. They are to be leaders. And that is what a king is. A king is a leader. And we are only kings to our ultimate king, the King of Kings, which is Christ. Christ is our icon. He is our ultimate icon. And we are also icons unto each other. And so that same theology of Christ as icon and us as icons to each other, I think, bleeds into the idea of the King of Kings, and then us as men becoming our own kings and developing our own quote-unquote kingdoms, meaning our households, maybe your homestead, maybe it's tied with your business, your lifestyle, the framework of your life is sort of a kingdom. And are you the king of it? Your relationships with women, for example, you can't be an incompetent, emasculated, feminized man and be the king of your kingdom, because those roles don't occupy each other. Like, they're mutually exclusive. So men, as I've already highlighted, I'm not going to, again, continue to belabor this point, just have to occupy their traditional roles, and those traditional roles are going to be leaders and defenders and protectors. And to do that, you have to be strong and powerful, and you have to be courageous. And so, unfortunately, for many men, they aren't the king of their kingdoms. And then the rhetorical, or just the rhetoric I hear online from a lot of Christian men, very hateful towards women, it makes me think, it's like, how are you going to get a woman? Like, you're never going to be able to be a king of your kingdom. One, because of the lack of kingly qualities and masculine qualities within yourself, but also this animosity towards women that is totally not actually about women, but about your own failings to attract women and to be desirable for women. That is really what's driving a lot of the animosity I see online of always bashing women. We can talk about the sexual degeneracy, the OnlyFans, the lack of tradition, all this stuff, sure. But women are to be led. And it's men who are to be leaders. And so if you're in a society which has no real leaders, and the women are roaming aimlessly in regards to morality and sexual practices and spirituality and all this different stuff, how can you blame them? Yes, you can highlight the problems, but it's men. It's men. It's all about men are weak. And men are responsible for our society. Men are responsible for the situation we're in. And that includes you and I to a degree, right? And we can move this in the opposite by taking responsibility. And so that was the last thing that I had, or next to the last thing in regards to this king of their kingdoms. Are they kings of their kingdoms? Are they taking responsibility? Because you can't be a king of a kingdom unless you're responsible for that kingdom. Therefore, responsible for your health. Are you responsible for your income? Are you responsible for other people? That would get back to that sort of protector. Are they protectors? What are you responsible for? Are you taking responsibility for all aspects of your life? And if you are moving into the kingly position that you are supposed to occupy within your own kingdom. If you're not taking responsibility for your health, for your knowledge, for every attribute you can control, and even attributes you can't control, you still take responsibility over, that is what we're looking for. That is going to have way more ripple effects within society, within your life, within the people's lives that encounter you than anything else. It's just, discipline equals freedom. The whole Jocko Willink thing, discipline equals freedom, and sort of that taking of a radical responsibility. Like it's so funny that, again, Christianity, orthodoxy itself is so built with all these conundrums that are so, once you see them, you can't not see them. For example, like freedom is becoming a slave to Christ, contradiction. But it takes a while to unpack that, because you see then if you're addicted to the world, or you're addicted to things that Christ would not want you to do, you are a slave to those things. But if you're a slave to Christ, you're actually free. Or the taking of responsibility, that if you want more meaning, if you want more freedom of one's life, you actually take on more responsibility. And so again, sort of a contradiction there, but the same is true. And so we see these things all through Orthodox theology, really. So the last one then being is that the King of Kings, and I already highlighted that, is that Christ is the icon, and we are to be icons unto each other. And so Christ is the King of Kings. Lion is the king of the jungle. And so again, we see becoming a king, becoming that sort of higher conceptual framework of what a man is and how he occupies his role within even a sort of local family position. We can still see the king quality. And even, I think this is why then young guys, right? You always want to tell, oh, nice job, king. Thanks, king. And bringing that back, what that is doing, whether they're conscientious of it or not, is that young men are trying to describe a very masculine, dominant, powerful role that they themselves, of other men who occupy similar belief systems, and that they are also kings, right? And this is tied usually back to traditional Christian morality and all this stuff. So interesting how all this stuff works. Last point, number 5, sorry to belabor, it's already over an hour and a half, didn't mean to go this long, is, are they dignified and wise? That is the last point. So again, running through this whole little thing I've been doing for the last 30 minutes or so is asking, how can the lion work for the contemporary man as an ideal symbol for the contemporary Christian man? I talked about being courageous. I talked about being strong and powerful. I talked about being protectors. I talked about being kings of their kingdom. And the fifth one is, are they dignified and wise? And that may not be one that you initially thought I would put down, but dignity and wisdom are also things portrayed or symbolized by a male lion. And so that dignity, that sort of ultimate, the way that they know who they are, they know their role in nature. And so I wanted to say that when we look at modern men, I say and I tied this generally speaking, and I'm not speaking to you guys, just large general characteristic. Maybe you guys disagree, that's fine. But there's no class, there's no dignity, and therefore there's no meaning. And that leads to a lack of self-respect. And so for so many men, they have no self-respect. And because they have no self-respect, again, this nasty feedback loop, because they have no self-respect, they're going to have no class, they're going to have no dignity, and they're going to have very little meaning in their lives. And so we, as Christian men, need to, and I've talked about this, just sort of a little bit, just being a little bit more put together, a little bit more formal, even in the way you dress, the way you talk, just, the way you shake people's hands or whatever. Just moving back to some of those more traditional characteristics is going to bring in more class. I spoke with Luke Kindrat of Orthodoxy First. In our conversation, we talked about how an easy way, like it's such an easy way to move more freely into the world, is to just articulate yourself well and dress nice. And the way other people treat you is going to be different. That first impressions are important. The way people perceive you is important. And that is a transmission of meaning. The way you dress is a transmission of meaning. And so again, if your life is meaningless, the way in which you present yourself is also pretty much going to be meaningless. And how can anybody have dignity in residing in a life like that? You can't. You can't have dignity. And therefore, that's why so many men are the way they are. There is no dignity. We need to get back to these old traditional attributes and virtues like honor, like dignity, like respect, right? Those are going to help move our movement. Again, if we do this collectively as individuals and continue to work ourselves and better ourselves in the name of God, to glorify God, for the purpose of glorifying God ultimately, that's only going to help. It's only going to help our movement because, again, it's the natural structure of the world. And women ultimately are going to be attracted to you if you embody those characteristics because they want to have successful children. And so seeing a successful man, it's just going to increase your odds. It's just going to, it's something good to do. So having a little bit more class is going to lead to having a little bit more dignity, no doubt. Now, another thing related to this I have is no wisdom, no tradition, and no perspective. And as I was highlighting earlier with the problems of the sort of progressive paradigm and how they're one of the reasons why I think they're so adamant about the mask, that they're so more willing to believe institutional authority, is because their worldview, the worldview that says that their virtue, that their social justice morality, that their critical race theory, that their performative gender theories, the reason why these are all okay, in which then they revalidate as I'm a good person because I think love is love. I'm a good person because I support BLM. That whole paradigm is built by the Fortune 500 companies. It's built by all the institutional power. And so if they still want to believe who they think they are, they actually have to believe all the nonsense that's coming out from all these corporations, from the mainstream news media and all this stuff. It's all tied together. And so, as I mentioned, what would bring somebody out of that problem would to have a traditional framework. And so when I ask, are they dignified and are they wise? Where do we get wisdom from? Where do we get wisdom from? Well, from a Christian paradigm, it's from Christ. Wisdom is an uncreated energy. Wisdom is described in all the wisdom text, right? Proverbs, Psalms, the wisdom of Solomon. And by the way, I highly recommend you guys reading the Wisdom of Solomon if you haven't. It's actually an incredible book. I just went through chapter 7 in our Bible study yesterday with Subdeacon Mark and people at my church, and it was all about wisdom. The whole chapter 7. It's really good stuff. But no wisdom, no tradition, and therefore no perspective. Now think about this. You could frame it as no tradition because we need Christianity to give framework to much of what we're talking about here. So they don't have a tradition. Therefore, they don't have much wisdom because the tradition provides us with wisdom. The lives of the saints, the fact that orthodoxy is a living tradition from, the inception of 33 AD, if you will, to the present moment, imbues it with so much collective wisdom. There's so much collective wisdom there. Now, wisdom by definition is really just the ability to accurately perceive reality, which is a little bit different than intelligence. Intelligence is like recognition of patterns and all this stuff. So you can recognize tons of patterns of white supremacy or whatever and not have a whole lot of wisdom. And so wisdom and intelligence, two different things, but there's no tradition, there's no wisdom. And because of that, how can they have perspective? And this is why when you look at this mass stuff in America, it's always Christian-based people who are going to be critical to much of this stuff because they have a perspective for it. The other people don't have a perspective because their worldview is given to them. How can they get outside of it? They'd have to, again, be willing. They'd have to initially really want to pursue truth. And then I think God shows mercy on many of those people. Like I feel like he showed mercy on me by bringing me out of where I was. That you don't have perspective if your worldview is literally shaped by the Fortune 500 companies and intelligence agencies and the governments of the world and the CCP. How can you have wisdom? How can you have a perspective on what's going on in the world? You won't even be able to perceive good and evil because of the relativistic epistemology and morality most of them are already embedded in. So they can't even see, the war that's happening right now between good and evil, between life and death, right? And they have no perspective. And then the few live lives that would lead to wisdom. And so this was the last thing I want to say, and this will be the last point of the stream. Then I'll hit some of these super chats. So if you got any super chats, feel free to send them in. But few people, when we look at contemporary men, are actually living a life that leads them to wisdom. And what I mean by that is if your life is continually behind a computer screen, you wake up, you're filling yourselves with sugar and, bad foods, you are addicted to pornography, you're degenerate in one way or another, and that sort of consumption of culture and media and entertainment is just your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly cycle. How you're not even living a life that would lead you to wisdom. Now, you could be an atheist, you could be a bad person, a deep sinner, but you travel, you camp out in nature, you're going and doing things, you build stuff. It's like a man who's actually, he may have the wrong paradigm, he may have the wrong presuppositions, but he's out there engaging in the world. That at least will lead him, if he wants it, to wisdom. And he'll be able to put those patterns together and again, see something a little bit deeper. But if you're not doing any of that, how are your life ever going to lead you to wisdom in the first place? And that's why I think lion, as a symbol of dignity and wisdom, can again be a useful symbol for the contemporary man. That concludes my live stream today. Went much longer than I expected. I thought this was going to be just over an hour long. It is an hour and 52 minutes later, and I continue to ramble as I always do. So sorry about that, but I guess that's, for some of you, that's what you tune in for. But anyways, I hope you liked that. Again, that was on the Logos, the Lion, and the King of Kings, discussing biblical symbolism related to the lion. Looks like I got a few super chats. Thank you for everybody who donated, who sent anything in. First one obviously was from Nick. I highlighted that earlier. Shout out to Nick. Hope you and your family are doing well, brother. God bless. We'll see you Wednesday. Mama Llama threw in $4.99. Jeez. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Mama Llama and I have gone back for a while. We had been communicating back when I was on Fractal Universe. And so she has also made the transition to Orthodoxy. Thank you so much, Mama Llama, for the $4.99. God bless you and your family, and I hope everything is going well. Testicular Tactics, threw in $5. God, that has to be one of the best names on YouTube. Testicular Tactics. Threw in $5. He says, "You're my Wegro, my white." Testicular Tactics. I'm curious if you're black or white, but thank you. I'm honored to be your Wegro. I'm glad we could share in that brotherhood. Please do let me know though. I'm curious if which side of the dialectic you sit on. But thank you, brother, for the $5. Really appreciate that. I know you've donated before, so thank you for helping me out. I really appreciate it. Nathaniel Hill, oh dude, he's a good friend. Nathaniel Hill threw in 2077. We need a Cyberpunk 2077 analysis. Oh man, Nathaniel, dude, I hope your family's doing well. Really good guy. Nathaniel has a beautiful family, a beautiful wife. Really doing what most of us want to do. Professional guy, making money, trying to build that homestead, trying to build that sustainable lifestyle. We've had multiple private conversations. Nathaniel's such a good guy. I really appreciate, brother, the 2077. Thank you so much, man. Again, we need it. We need to chat soon. We need to catch up. I know you've been busy, super busy with work, but yeah, I'll reach out to you on Telegram. We got to catch up. So thank you, brother. Nathaniel with 2077 throws in, says, we need a Cyberpunk 2077 analysis. I will work on that. But thank you so much, brother. Really appreciate you helping me out. Really do, man. Appreciate your friendship. Thank you, Nathaniel. Daniel E threw a $9.99, says, great energy tonight, David, and gave me the okay. So thank you very much, Daniel. I really appreciate it, brother. I know you donated last time. Thank you so much, man. Glad you liked the energy tonight. I did start a little bit earlier. I started at 4:30 today, which I don't mind. One of the things that I've noticed doing these streams is they like give me a ton of energy. And so I get energized when I get off the stream. And so when I do them late, it's like, I gotta cool the jets. I gotta cool down. And sometimes it's difficult to get to bed later. And I can only imagine that's made me think, is like, I'm interacting with people in a live chat digitally through a delayed, like online feed. What it's like to perform in front of thousands of people, I can only imagine the energetic thrill that is. And no wonder musicians and rock stars are drug addicts because it literally, it's like taking an Adderall or something. And so imagine doing that in front of people live. It's like, geez. But yeah, thank you everyone who has supported. I really appreciate it. But yeah, tonight I started at 4:30 instead of, usually it's like 5, 6:30, sometimes 7 o'clock, which I don't mind. I think I'm just gonna relax the rest of the day. I may go to the gym tonight. I'm not sure, but yeah. So that's basically all that I had to say. I'll scroll back through the chat, see if anybody said anything. Oh, Mama Llama said, hey, Patrick, glory to God. Yes. Glory to God and all. Yeah, it seems like everybody was having a good time in the chat. Again, if you guys have any questions directly, again, if you have a question right now, I can answer something. But yeah. Brian No says, great work, brother. Jesus is king. Thanks to the triune God. No doubt about that. I just hope that I did justice and that my words don't lead anybody astray. I pray that before I go online each time, is that I can be a tool or a conduit for God and not lead anybody astray due to my own ignorance, by not, by even unintentionally speaking out of turn or saying something wrong. I always pray that isn't the case. Brian No said, gladiator in the spiritual Colosseum. No doubt about that. Mama Llama said, Church of the Eternal Logos. Thanks so much, Patrick. Super Chat has a PayPal option now. No doubt. Thanks to God. Your work for God is so inspiring, and I can't wait to see how you grow. Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate that, and I hope it does too. But I really appreciate those kind words, especially for somebody who's been watching my content, like me putting out stuff for quite a long time and seeing the transition. So it means a lot from you. Thank you very much, Anna, or Mama Llama. Thank you. Jimmy said, oh snap, it accepts PayPal now. Definitely going to do it next stream. Yeah, Jimmy, don't feel obligated. Again, I don't want anybody to feel obligated to ever donate to me or anything like that. but I do appreciate every single dollar you guys contribute. It really means a lot. Again, I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. And so smashing the like, sharing the streams. Again, if you are able to donate $5 a month, just signing up for the membership for $5 a month, just consider it a donation, and it will allow you to access all this exclusive content if that's something you'd be interested in. I recommend everybody signing up there, but again, thank you guys for all the super chats. Thank you guys for all the support. It means the world to me, because I do try to put a ton of effort into this stuff and make sure that every time I go live that it's quality, it's dense, it connects, it makes sense, and that it's useful for people, and that they can actually take that perspective into their regular life, and maybe even help somebody else by just putting dots together. Not that I am doing it. What's interesting to me is like how I pray for topics. I usually don't even know what, unlike Wednesday, I think I'm going to do one on Samson. Often I don't even know what I'm going to talk about when the week starts. I just pray. Sometimes something will hit me and it's like, oh, that's it. And then I'll just do it. And what's interesting is when I look over the streams over a period of time, how they begin to connect when I had no idea, at the time actually doing it and being into the day to day, I don't see it. But then when I step back, it all begins to sort of paint a mosaic. It's really interesting. But anyways, Dr. Klaus Schwab says, do you have a day job? No, I don't. My day job is reading. I'm also a PhD student, Dr. Klaus. So I have school stuff I always have to work on. And then for me, going to the gym, working on my body's work, because I want to help educate other people how to do that. Every time I'm reading a book, trying to prepare for a stream, when I'm doing my schoolwork, all that is work. But no, I don't have a regular job. All the money I make online. And so that's why it means so much when anybody begins to support or help me out, because I'm devoting a lot. I've thrown all my eggs into the online public intellectual basket. And so it's either do or die in regards to making a career out of this. I really don't have a choice based on the public ideas I've already expressed. It's going to be very difficult to get like a traditional, like a tenure job at a university. Not going to happen. So I'm not even going to play that game. I've been playing the game of trying to build up a following and find people who really care about what you do and what you have to say, and trying to reach that critical 1,000, right? If you get 1,000 people that will pay you and support what you do, you can have a career doing something that you're good at. And so that's what I'm doing, man. So every day is a hustle. You'd probably be surprised. You'd probably be surprised how much I work during the day. He says, "How do you pay rent, bro?" Well, my mother has a really rare form of muscular dystrophy, and so I moved out of California to live with my parents so I can spend as much time with her and help them around the house. So I don't pay rent, thankfully. I live with my parents. I help my mom. I spend as much time with her. Like tonight, we'll probably watch a Christmas movie together. So a little bit of a different situation. I wanted to get out of California. My mom, became sick. So I thought it was only appropriate that I move in with them and try to do as much as I can for them around the house or whatever. And then every chance I get, I just build my business, man. I just read books, work out, make videos, write, try to do schoolwork. So that's what I do. Annie Banani said, "Your channel is one of my favorite shows, Patrick. Great stuff. Keep it up." Oh, thank you so much, Annie. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. And I did get back to your comment on the last video. if you're interested, the exclusive content is not just geared for bros. I've had women, multiple women have already signed up for it. So if that's something you are interested, it's basically the same thing I do here. It's just some private content, but yeah. So thank you, Annie. I really do appreciate that. Brian No said prayers for your study. Thank you, brother. Klaus Schwab said I'll pray for you. Paul Johansson said, what do you think of solipsism and people who think they are God hallucinating other beings? I mean, non-duality. Oh my gosh. So Lawrence John just threw in 100 NOK. Thank you very much, brother. Jeez Louise. Thank you so much, man. God bless you and your family, bro. Merry Christmas. Lawrence John said, thank you, brother. God bless you and your family. God bless you and yours, bro. It's tough times, just tough times. Life is difficult. I want to talk a little bit more openly about burying my dog. Last night, my spiritual father, my priest, fell and is in the ER at the hospital. So I don't know exactly how that's going. And then if you guys can pray for my mom. If you guys can pray for my mom, I greatly appreciate it. But I'm gonna have to get off here. So, anyways, guys, gosh, yeah. So, thank you, Lawrence John, man. I appreciate that, brother. It's like $10. Take care and keep praying, bro. Yeah. So the tough part. Let me just put the emotions in the back seat for a second. The tough part with my mother and the muscular dystrophy is to witness the gradual degradation of one's body, and oh shit, just gosh, sorry about that, guys. It's the natural degradation of one's body. And so just when you're around somebody that you care about and they have that disease, and you're always hoping that maybe, it'll be slower and slower, that it's not going to come on too fast. And then you see how it affects people and how it does come on pretty fast. It's hard to deal with. I don't like talking about it. I don't like being weak for my parents either, or my mom. So, I tend to just try to bundle it all up on the inside, and and realize that God's in control. That the emotions often are tied to wanting to keep something static. So I noticed, like with my dog and burying my dog Friday, that when I got emotional and thinking about it, it wasn't the best for him. Again, he was having seizures, so putting him down and all that stuff, it was for the best. It's just I didn't want him to go yet. And I noticed again that with other, with my mom or whoever. So for those that had asked what my mother's name is, it is Patricia. And so if you could pray for her, I would greatly appreciate that. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to get that way. I really apologize, guys. I don't know. I mean, I know why. Obviously, you can understand to a degree, but
it is hard to see that happen to, your mom, and she's just a really good person, so it's just tough. But we'll get through it, we'll get through it. So, anyways, um, thank you guys for all the support. I really, really appreciate it. Again, if you guys like what I'm trying to do, feel free to go to the website at davidpatrickcarey.com/register. And potentially, if you're interested and if you're in a position which you're able to, getting a website membership, and even if you don't plan on watching any more material, that you're already packed with content, if you're able to, just considering it a monthly donation, I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Okay, everybody's asking questions. Thank you guys for all the prayers. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, so if the exclusive content is something you guys might be interested in, feel free to check that out over at the website at davidpatrickcarey.com/register. I promise if you like what I'm doing on here, you will like the exclusive content's the same thing. It's just sometimes topics that I don't want to make entirely public. Obviously, I'm making them public to people who are members, but things like my going to a Gnostic mass. There's aspects of that story, as some of the people who've already watched it may know, that I don't want to put out for the whole world to see. That could be used against me or one way or another. So that's all private content. But if that is something you guys would be interested, please go sign up over at the website. If you're interested in more of my day-to-day life and things that I do, you can follow me over on Instagram. Here is the link for that. So if you guys would like to see sort of my day-to-day stuff, feel free to check me out there. Always posting stories and comments and stuff like that for my life, for different stuff. So Mama Llama says, Church of the Eternal Logos, you showed how a man deals with pain, Patrick. Women can't do that like you. Will pray for your mom, who must be a saint. Patricia. Well, thank you very much, Anna. I really, really appreciate that. I figure my mom's not watching right now. She likes to watch my videos, even though she doesn't understand some of the stuff that I'm talking about, but she just likes to watch them. And so I don't really ever want to talk about her disease or anything. One, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to get sympathy from anybody, but I just don't want, I wouldn't want her to see, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just don't like talking about it publicly too much. But anybody who knows my life, anybody who I meet like in physical 3-dimensional, time, space, reality, they know my situation. They know of all that stuff. So yeah, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys again. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Dr. Klaus Schwab. Thank you, Lawrence John, Daniel E., Nathaniel Hill, Testicular Tactics, great name, and Nick Offinger. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really, really appreciate all your guys' support. And as always, until next time, which will be Wednesday, and we'll be talking about Samson. Until next time, as always, God bless.